But maybe for some of those other forwards, the depth that we're seeing with the players they've got in. I mean, let's remember, Nate, it was just Ferran Torres and Aubameyang coming in the last season. Now they could be second choice. What do you make of this? How heavy it's going to be up top for them and the fighting for a place?
Yeah, it is going to be tough, as you say. And I think one thing that sort of goes unnoticed, I think, sometimes in squads is, these guys, they're all capable of starting games week in, week out. So when you end up sitting on the bench for prolonged periods of time, you can be professional, make sure that you're ready, but you will be disappointed. I think any of those guys, if they didn't feel that level of disappointment, then they're in the wrong game, they're in the wrong profession, essentially, because they should strive to be playing week in, week out and making a difference, because that's ultimately, for those guys overall, why they were brought to the football club, whether it's, say, Fati coming through the academy or, say, Aubameyang coming from Arsenal. You weren't brought in to be cover, so to have to sit on the bench, essentially, and be just that, it's going to be greatly disappointing for some of them, but this is the way Barca have done their recruitment. Obviously some players have come up at certain times and maybe there wasn't like the grandest plan in the world, which was started off 2 years ago to bring somebody in. But they've reacted, this is what they have now, it's going to be mega competitive. And I think for them, I guess the hope is that it's going to be fair, but that fair isn't necessarily something that's associated with football. I think Xavi will know who he wants to have in his front line and very quickly will realise the sort of relationships and people who play well together, because I think as well, looking at the graphic, where's Memphis Depay? I'm pretty sure he's still there, so that's another little ingredient to add to that setup. And yeah, they've certainly got options, but it's just about finding the right ones if they want to try and rise again and be back to who they were.
Good spot, Naden. We were testing you and you were right. No Memphis Depay on that graphic either.
Yeah, is that a mistake or is just the graphics not big enough?
No, we were going to bring it up because they are still trying to offload some players as well.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about Depay necessarily.
Well, don't forget as well, they played Gavi up in the left-hand side on a few occasions last year in that front three. So, they've been trying to get shot of Samuel and Tite for quite a while. Martin Braithwaite, obviously, or Braithwaite, however you want to pronounce it, I presume, would be surplus to requirements like the rest. And don't forget, Ferran Torres left Man City because game time was tough, obviously, and probably wanted to go back to Spain as a young man as well. And Barcelona are a huge club, but he's unlikely to get any more game time now at Barcelona than he was at Manchester City. In fact, it might be even less, who knows. And I'm sure when Aubameyang signed, the name of Lewandowski didn't even pop up into the equation, and now all of a sudden he'll find himself, let's be frank about it, unless he's playing off the left-hand side, which he has done a lot for Arsenal, to be fair to him. But he's gone there as this striker that was going to be playing through the middle, and that old-fashioned role is when he was at Dortmund. Unless Lewandowski's injured or getting a rest, he ain't playing either. So yeah, it is important when you look at the big squads, particularly the big juggernauts in European football at the moment. Real Madrid have some options, not all the best, but Liverpool have options, City have options, and in this front line, Barcelona have options. But I go back to it, all these teams that I've mentioned are also strengthening at the back and are strong at the back. Barcelona are not.
I want to just bring up the fact that you did mention Ferran Torres, because yes, it was leaked from a private event this week, but Joan Laporta saying basically that Pep and his men had sold them a player who doesn't score goals, and you can't say anything these days because everybody finds out. This isn't how Ferran Torres expected it to go, is it, Naden?
No, it certainly isn't. It certainly isn't. And I think one thing that was clear, especially from the City side of things, as he was going back to Spain, was that, he wasn't the finished article. There was work that could be done, but they'd seen his potential. They'd seen his, ceiling, essentially. So for Barca, if they thought that they were bringing in the finished article and everything was going to be perfect, I think they were ultimately missing the point. But it's not like he's just appeared out of the blue. He was known. I think he was playing for the Spanish national side. They knew his ups, they knew his downs. So I think for him to go over there and to not just straight away and to have not scored a ton of goals, that shouldn't be the biggest of surprises, in my opinion. But then for Laporta, him saying that and essentially being caught out, obviously he's not going to be happy with that. But, choose your words, I guess, because at the end of the day, the player's probably going to hear that. And is that going to help him score more goals now? Probably not, especially as he's probably going to spend a lot more time sitting on the bench. So now they're going to be looking at that move thinking, was it the right move in the time? And for him, again, because there was talk that he was homesick when he was in Manchester, even though he's back in Spain, before you know it, he might be thinking, well, I don't feel welcome here either because here's what the president's saying, and now I don't even get game time as well. So it's a very interesting situation, but Barca shouldn't be surprised unless they are the most reactive team in history, because Ferran Torres, people know people knew what he was like before he signed for Barcelona. So for them to be surprised, I think is missing the point.
Did he really say that?
Yeah, well, he was at a private event, basically like an event, a Johan Cruyff tribute, and he said Pep and Chiqui. It was a bit of a joke to them.
Yeah.
They sold us Ferran Torres, and he doesn't score goals. But there was some more things said, but that was leaked.
Well, I'm hoping he was just tongue in cheek, because if not, it's just a stupid comment.
I think it's definitely tongue in cheek, but it doesn't help, right?
Oh, I mean, it doesn't help the young player. I mean, this is a young man who, after one game last season, I believe, when he missed a hatful of chances, cried. So there's some mental torture going on already in his head, and that's not an easy thing to get rid of. But listen, they coveted the player. They coveted the player. Yeah, he wanted to go back, but they coveted him, and they signed him when he was injured. He was actually injured when they signed him. So, but as Nedum said, he's a Spanish international. There's a reason City took him over. They thought he was a good player. They thought he could work with them, but it was going to take time. They wanted to go back to Spain. Barcelona wanted him, but it's maybe going to take time. But you know, you don't sell people duds. You have to want to buy the player, and they did. So, but yeah, clearly I think there's a little crisis of confidence from Ferran Torres, and that certainly won't help.